Hi guys, my name is Nick Broughton and I'm a Randomfish. If you're a Randomfish, or if you think you're going to be one, or even if you're not one but just feel like having a good time, hit that subscribe button and let's get to doing some videos. So, last week I looked at the Clerks comic. Interesting little comic, interesting little sort of roundabout moment, but I thought I'd go back to a film, and I figured why not go from one Kevin Smith film to another. No, I'm not reviewing Clerks, I'm not reviewing Clerks 2. I'm not reviewing anything from the Tusk universe, actually. For those of you who don't know, the Tusk universe is the entirety of Kevin Smith's movies from that universe, involving the characters of Dante and Randall, Jay and Silent Bob, a whole bunch of these characters. Those are the main ones from Clerks, though those are the ones from the comic that I was reviewing last time. So, the movie I want to look at today is actually part of his True North trilogy. The trilogy of movies that he's making just because he can. And in all honesty, you know what? That works. The movie I'm going to look at today is Tusk. This movie is about one man turning another man into a walrus. That's seriously the plot of the movie. Oh, you want more? Okay, let's do this properly, shall we? Okay. So, the main character is called Walter. He and his friend Teddy do a little podcast called the Not See Party. Okay? I want you to listen very carefully. Not See Party. Okay? So when they announce it on their show, they call, "You're more than welcome to join the Nazi Party." You get it? Really bad German joke. Or really clever German joke, depending entirely on how you phrase it. Really. Bizarre. Anyway. Walter and Ted's podcast entire thing is essentially going up to finding fucked up people doing fucked up things, having a laugh, doing an interview with them. Walter has also gone through a little bit of a transition before this film actually begins. He used to be a really nice guy doing stand-up and wasn't really that much of a weirdo, and then he started doing the podcast and he got a little bit meaner, started interviewing and started making people feel bad about themselves, and all of a sudden he's become a bit of an arrogant jerk, but he also gets quite a lot of money from advertisers, and he has a smoking hot girlfriend and all this sort of thing. So Walter and his girlfriend at the time, who was talking to him about all of this, points out that obviously being a jerk is what got him where he is, so why would he apologise for being a jerk when being a jerk is what got him to where he wanted to be? Duh! So, one of Walter's things is he has to go up to Canada in order to interview a kid called the Kill Bill Kid. On YouTube he is responsible essentially for spinning around with a samurai sword, trying to do Kill Bill stuff, and accidentally cuts off his own arm. When Wallace goes up to Canada, he ends up getting lost and ends up discovering that the Kill Bill Kid has ultimately offed himself. Apparently he was that depressed about the whole thing, and was also depressed about the YouTube video that was circulating, and everyone basically mocking and ridiculing him for having cut off his arm. Can't imagine why he killed himself. No, not at all. Weirdos on YouTube. Such weirdos. Anyway, he says, going back to his YouTube video, Wallace ends up getting really pissed and ends up going to a bar where he essentially goes off wanting to get drunk so he can forget about the concept that he's lost his interview and therefore had an entire trip to Canada wasted. Upon taking a piss in the local loo, he ends up discovering an advert of a man who lives on a faraway house, talking about how he wants to share the stories of his massive and extensive life at sea, and how his rich and fulfilling life has really given him something, and he really wants to share the stories with another human being. Wallace, leaping on this opportunity, takes a car and drives up to see him. He runs into two girls in a Canadian Quick Stop sort of thing. If you don't know what Quick Stop is, watch Clerks. Works better. He goes to the Canadian Quick Stop, asks the two Canadian girls. Now you might be wondering why I'm referencing this. This is also because the two Canadian girls that he talks to are referenced in another one of the movies. The second one that was released not long ago, called Yoga Hosers. These movies are weird. Yeah, these movies are very weird. Anyway, he gets to the house, starts talking to the guy. The guy, in which case, ends up lining his tea with something that knocks him out. And he ends up waking up sometime after having lost limbs and is in a wheelchair. He tries to contact the outside world, fails miserably at this, and the man slowly begins to reveal to him something about one of the stories that he told. About how when he was on the ship sank, and he was pulled back into safety by a walrus. This walrus, Mr. Tusk, as he calls him, was ultimately his saviour, and he simply wanted to repay the kindness to Mr. Tusk by reenacting the moments of when he was younger, and also, to an extent, the fate of the original Mr. Tusk, who was killed by the old man, who is played by, bizarrely enough, Michael Parks. If you don't know who Michael Parks is, be afraid. The man is genius. Absolute genius. Anyway, Michael Parks transforms the podcaster Wallace, played by Justin Long, by the way, in this movie, eventually turns Justin Long's walrus into a walrus. Wallace into a walrus. Wallace, walrus. You see where that came from? Yeah. Not the most obvious in the world, but still fairly on the nose. Pretty good stuff, though. It's fun stuff. However, during all of this, we ultimately get that he gets a message through to one of these people, his friend Teddy, who, oh, by the way, there's a whole subplot where the girlfriend's really pissed off at Wallace and so has been sleeping with Teddy, because apparently he's nicer to her than Wallace is, and they have compatibility with each other, and blah blah blah. So of course, by the time they discover the message, they start running around trying to find Wallace. They even run into a bizarre cop played by Johnny Depp, who is featured in Yoga Hoses as well. There's a whole like crossbreeding of characters across these three movies, hence why it's the True North trilogy and not just three random movies that he's going to make. Also the fact they're all set in Canada. But slowly but surely, Wallace gets turned into the walrus. He gets turned into Mr. Tusk. And Michael Parks ends up saying the one thing that he failed to mention at the end of the story. That he and Mr. Tusk had a fight. And that he ended up killing Mr. Tusk. And ultimately wants to repay the favour, as it were, to give the walrus a chance to start fighting back. So, of course, he ends up fighting against Mr. Tusk, and Wallace Tusk, whatever you want to call him, manages to kill him and sends him flying in. Oh, by the way, spoilers. I know, right? Stabs him, throws him into the water. However, by this point, he's so completely and utterly mentally and emotionally destroyed by this whole experience. He has become animalistic. He has become more walrus than what he used to be. Physically speaking, he looks like a walrus. He has been genetically changed. He has been sewn up to look like a walrus. Teeth have been inserted into him. He's been completely transformed. He's turned into a walrus. It's really creepy. But now, his mindset is of the same ilk. He is now more walrus than man. So by the time his now ex-girlfriend, if you will be so kind, and his best friend then discovers him, he is completely and utterly fucked. And what's the ending of the movie? They walk into a park somewhere where he's essentially living in a habitat, and she throws him fish and cries because the man she once loved is now a walrus. There's no recovery to humanity, there's no redemption arc, there's none of that shit. It is literally just an asshole being turned into a walrus by another asshole. That is literally the plotline of this movie. Now, it may seem that I'm hitting on this movie, it may seem that I don't like this movie. That's not it at all. I fucking loved this movie. Why? Because it is so fucked up that no one else would have ever thought of it. I mean, let's face facts. Sharknado, Mega Shark vs. Giant Octopus, Tusk, all of these movies, they've come from the mind of someone who is so completely insane. These writers have sat down and come up with a movie that is so unbelievably crazy that you can't help but love it, because no one else would have thought of this in a million years. And if they did, you question that person's sanity, and then you get them thrown into a police station, or more possibly assuming, Arkham Asylum. Yes, build Arkham Asylum from Batman simply to put this one person in there. He will end up putting on white makeup, putting on a fake smile, and becoming the Joker. I don't care. Create Arkham Asylum to put the people who write these movies in there, because these people are nuts. These people are insane. And you know what? I fucking love it. Because that's what we need. We have so many movies out there that play it safe, that have this perfect formula for how these movies should go down. And you know what? These guys have basically turned around and given the middle finger and said, fuck you. This is how we do a good movie. Boom! This is what you get. This is how Tusk is. This is what it does. It is fan-friggin-tastic. And above all of that, frankly, Michael Parks, he's not with us now, unfortunately. The actor who plays him. The actor Michael Parks, he's no longer with us. And honestly, he has done so many good things, but the things I remember him for are the Smiths films. He was in 2 films of Smiths the last time I checked. He might be in more, I don't know. I know he's in more movies, but I don't know about Kevin Smith's films in general. I know he was in Tusk, and I know he was also in another movie called Red State. Now, Red State I was going to talk about, but I decided a little bit against it because of various things that I really don't want to be getting into, because then it would lead on a whole different video. Not even going to try that. But Tusk was such an amazing performance from him. This was a man, this was a character who was talking, you know, so calmly about how a walrus was more intelligent than any man he'd ever known. You know, and then the next thing you know, you've got Justin Long crying at the top of his lungs, trying to get out of the situation, crying about this whole situation of what's happening to him. He has absolutely no idea why this is happening. And what does Michael Parks do? He doesn't cry alongside him. He makes noises and starts making walrus noises in his face. I mean, batshit writing, a batshit movie idea, that's all well and good. But unless you have the cast to back that up, you got shit. You ain't got bubkiss. And Michael Parks sells it so well. So fucking well. And honestly, I recommend this movie based on those 2 reasons. 1, Michael Parks. Check him out, he's a fucking legend. He really is. And 2, just the plot. Just the plot line alone. Listen to what I just said in this video. How is this movie not something that you would want to jump in head first to watch? It's so insane it needs to be watched. It's like any movie that I would ever think about reviewing. I watch movies for the insanity behind it. If I can follow the plot line of a movie, I'm not bored per se, but I'm not going to have a massive opinion on it because I will enjoy it because I understand the plot. If I know the plot and I like the plot, I'm fine with it. If I don't like the plot, then I don't like it, but then again I just never watch it again, so that's not really an issue. But a movie that keeps me not only guessing, but actually keeps me sitting there going, oh wow, they actually went with that. Oh, nice. And just the grotesqueness of it. That's what makes a good movie to me. Check out Tusk. Like this video. Subscribe to this channel. Watch Tusk. Watch Red State. Do whatever you need to do. But watch this actor in those movies. Watch him in other movies that he's in. He's done other movies, I know he has. But those are the 2 that I know him specifically from, because those are the movies that introduced me to him. Please, just check him out. Randomfish, out.